All right, we are on air. It is Thursday, January 28th. Happy January 28th. We're going to do a quick call today for design check-in, to check in on design tasks for Backdrop CMS. We have a short agenda and a couple of kind of high priority issues that we should maybe talk about, things for 1.4. And since there's not a whole bunch of people here today, I think what we'll probably do is postpone and see if we can talk about those issues in the developer meeting a little bit later today. And then if we have any designers who are there, we can get their feedback on that as well. If not, we can take it to the issue queue. So design tasks, starting with Backdrop CMS, the product itself. First of all, I just want to take a minute to say thank you to everybody who worked on all the design and user interface tasks that went into Backdrop 1.3. This is our first meeting, I think, since 1.3 was out. It was a big success. I'm really excited to be working with it and giving it to my clients. I think it's a huge improvement over the previous versions, and it only got there by making a whole bunch of little teeny tiny changes. So sometimes those little changes can really make a big difference. So congrats to everybody who worked on that, and thank you for all the help. So next release, 1.4, is scheduled for May 15th, and that release contains a couple of things that are particularly of interest to the design community. First of all, there's a couple of user experience issues that rolled over from 1.3 that we didn't get done in time that we would love to see done for 1.4. Some of those are really hard, things like a rewritten field UI, but we definitely need designer and user experience expert feedback on those. And you can see a list of all of the issues for 1.4 on GitHub. There's a link in the agenda for today's meeting, where you can just search by milestone for 1.4 on GitHub. But two of the big, most important things we need for Backdrop 1.4 are we're trying to put in a new front-end layout, or a new front-end theme, so that anyone who installs a Backdrop site can launch with a theme that's something other than Bartik. Bartik's what's in there now. It's beautiful, but it's a little bit too stylized. We're looking for something a little bit more general, generic, kind of white-labeled website feel. So we've got an issue on the issue queue. It's issue number 1361, which is talking about what our requirements might be for a front-end theme and suggestions or recommendations on what it should look like, pointing at examples of other themes that we think might make a good candidate, that sort of thing. So if we have any designers either listening to this now or watching it later, if you'd like to weigh in on what you want to see on a new front-end theme for Backdrop CMS, please add a comment there and let us know what you think. Another thing that we are itching to get into 1.4 is a new set of layouts. Right now, Core comes with 4 layouts, and that's not quite enough to build the average website. You usually need either more than that or different options than what is there today. And so we've been looking at taking some of these projects that are sets of layouts and including those in Core. And we need to kind of do some thinking about how that will affect the existing layouts. Like, are we going to try and provide upgrade paths, or are we going to leave the old ones there, call them legacy? How can we do this gently without breaking anybody's sites? And what those new front-end layouts should be. Like, how many should we include? How complicated should they be? What sort of grid system should we use? All of that has issue as well on GitHub. It's issue number 698. So if you are an expert in layouts or have an opinion on what we should be doing with layouts in Backdrop, we'd love to have your feedback there as well. If you are just interested in issues that may need designer or user experience input for Backdrop, there's also a tag in the issue queue, audience:*design, I think, and you can search all issues that are related to design, and that way if you have some amazing Photoshop skills but maybe aren't interested in writing any code, you can kind of look at some of the issues and go, oh, that should look like this, post a picture. Sometimes pictures, the people who can make pictures in open source end up being a lot more powerful than the people who can write code, because they can steer things. So we definitely appreciate people who can make pictures. So if you want to help us out with some of those issues, check out that tag. That would be a great place to jump in. In addition to Backdrop, the product, we also have backdropcms.org as an area that could use some design attention. We have a couple of to-dos here that are on the list that have been kind of ignored for the last few weeks as we've been working on Backdrop, the product. So the issues that we're working on is a new profile page that we have up right now. The to-do there is to clean up the edit form on that profile page so we can use our front-end theme on editing the profile. We've added a new blog or news and announcements section, and that would just kind of hack together with some styles that were chosen from various other websites, but it could use a little design review, and that's currently on Darius's plate. He knows about it. He's pretty busy, so he'll get to it when he has time. And then we're also starting to think about building a showcase section for backdropcms.org. This will enable anyone who's built a website to be able to post about it, talk about the cool things they did with Backdrop, and show an example of the site, maybe with a link back to it, and give them a little SEO love there too. And I've got it to do there to gather the types of content we want to include in that showcase site. So look at other showcase sites, find out what works for them, what we think would work for us, and build a list of all of the content we'd like to include. And that will drive not only the development side of it with creating content types and views and fields and all of that on our website, but also the design side and how do you find a place to put all of the stuff on the page. So I've got it to do there for that. So we don't have anything actively underway on the backdropcms.org website other than content creation, which doesn't necessarily require any design input. Until we can see the content, then it might. That's kind of where we are with the primary website. And then we have a couple of other things long-term that we're going to be working on, like building an event listing, letting people list their companies or themselves as service providers. And then we have a couple of follow-up issues for the find a module, find a layout, find a theme sections of the site as well. As you all probably know, there are Backdrop t-shirts and hoodies available. If you make a donation to Backdrop, we can send you one as a thank you gift. If you are already a contributor to the Backdrop project, you have earned a t-shirt. So you can send an email to info@backdropcms.org. We consider contributor rather loosely, so obviously we're not looking for code samples or pull requests, but if you have participated in conversations or provided designs for anything, that also counts as being a contributor, and you have earned a t-shirt, and we'd be happy to set one out. Also, just really quick, we should mention that there are slides available in the Backdrop Ops group on GitHub. These are available for anyone who wants to give a talk on Backdrop, and we would also love it if anyone who gives a talk and changes or adds to that slide deck would contribute them back. So pull requests welcome there. We have a couple of issues in the backdropcms.org queue that are related particularly to branding or marketing, and we could definitely use some help in that area. If anyone's a marketing expert, you can search the issue queue for the tag audience marketing and see what we've got going on there. The one we're working on most recently, or most relevant to this call, is creating some online branding imagery that can go with Backdrop. On the Facebook page, on the Twitter page, anywhere we need kind of a banner image. And I know we've gotten a couple of great posts as a start that are kind of the right feel for Backdrop, but we haven't gotten anything definitive yet. I know there's a couple of people working on that, so thank you in advance for all the effort you're putting into that, and we are looking forward to seeing where that can go. If anyone wants to follow that issue, it's number 121 in the backdropcms.org queue. And then, Mike, just because I think you might want to weigh in on this, and I noticed that you just joined, one of the things that we talked about earlier, we just kind of talked about needing it as a new front-end theme. Andy came today because he was hoping to talk about that. I don't know if you already wanted to take some time in this meeting to talk about it, but we were thinking that maybe what we should do is wait for the developer meeting, and then we'd get kind of more eyes on the problem. We'd be able to talk about that since we don't have any of our design folk here, usual design folk here today. Do you think that makes sense?
Yeah. Well, I mean, most devs will say we probably want a list of requirements to start out with.
Yeah.
And just, coming up with, or at least, like there'll be probably an argument of like, what grid system to use, or, what frameworks to include and stuff like that, but it seems like sort of like the basic things that we're looking for is kind of a good start for any project. So yeah, that's what I suggest we work on.
Okay.
But yes, we could bring it up in the other meeting as well.
Yeah, I'll go through the issue queue and see if I can pull out some things that people have mentioned. There's a whole bunch of stuff in the comments about possible requirements, and if we can maybe like put those in the list at the top, we can talk through those and see if there's anything else we're missing. And even if we don't have a consensus on what to do yet, if we can kind of narrow down, like, is it really important that it works with color module? That kind of thing, I think would help us move forward.
And probably also just sort of like a inspiration board, like, you know, like what other themes out there, what other sites would we want the backdrop install to look like? Would probably also help just people's ideas of, you know, a visual goal.
Yeah, that's great. And that's a great thing to announce in this meeting too. So anyone who watches this video later, if you have a really good idea of a kind of a blank slate but usable, launchable today kind of site that you see out there that you think should be inspiration for Backdrop, take a screenshot and post it in the issue queue. That issue, again, for a new front-end theme for Backdrop is number 1361 in the Backdrop issue queue. And there's a link to that in the agenda, and there's also it's in the 1.4 milestone if you just go to the issue queue and search for it that way. Okay, well, a few other things, I guess, to touch base on. We are hoping to get human interface guidelines going for Backdrop. We can kind of build these as we need to, but trying to figure out when certain interface elements should be used and when they shouldn't. We need to document what we're doing in core. We need to figure out if that's actually what we want to do or not. And then we need to try and go through and update core to match the things we do want to do and stop doing the things we don't want to do. And then hopefully Contrib will follow when they're building user interfaces. If anyone is really interested in documenting user interfaces, there's a public GitHub repo you can contribute to. We haven't had a lot of progress on that lately because we've obviously been busy with a bunch of other stuff, but it might be a good project for someone if they were super interested in it to work at their own pace there. There's no rush, and it would definitely help us out. So.
Well, like I mentioned in one of the comments, I think I said that out loud, like, you know, it would be good if we sort of make that a requirement of when we actually are changing the interface elements. Like, we're having a lot of these discussions, like, oh, should we rename everything to, like, create or edit or list and stuff like that. So, like, whenever we release a patch doing one of these sort of, like, big design changes, we should probably document that at that time and not, like, not actually release the thing or not actually close the ticket until we actually get documentation that we've actually are changing the thing.
Okay, I think that would be great. Then we could document what those things are. Like, well, obviously this bothered enough we had to change it. Let's write down why and how it should be.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, in general, that would be kind of good to, like, I've sort of, like, when people ask, like we just did the config blocks, the blocks in config, and then, like, some other ticket, someone was like, why did we do that? And it's like, rather than, like, just explaining it all over again or pointing them to the original ticket where they can, like, sort of delve through the entire back and forth discussion, it would be great if we actually had, like, even more than just the design guidelines, a place to document, like, why we did things. Like, not only, and maybe we can do that, like, because we have all the improvements, like, I guess we have the list of improvements on the Backdrop site, but maybe we could also have the why we did it as part of that and try to document that so we can sort of track decisions.
Yeah. Where do you think those should live? Like, we have this place for change records that are very specifically for, like, oh, if you're changing code, here's the code before and after. But should we have another type that's, like similar to a change record, but more like an explanation record or something that we can just talk about, like, how we made these decisions? Or
well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
I just don't know where.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of, like, you know, yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I thought that, Nate, when you did the announcement of all the cool improvements in the latest release, that was sort of a good rundown of at least, like, a lot of the visual changes and stuff like that. And if we somehow sort of atomized that and indexed it and had one of those for every release, that might be good. So, because that seemed like a good format where you're showing, like, you know, hey, before and after, and, like, how it works now, and some nice GIFs and things. So I thought that was, like, a good format.
Okay.
Yeah, and we should have one of those for every release at this point. I know our last one wasn't quite so elaborate. But honestly, we had a lot of stuff to show off this release. I felt like it actually needed. Um, this release required a lot more explanation than the previous one did, where it's just like Path Auto, you know. But even then, I guess maybe that's a poor assumption on our part, assuming that people would be familiar with, the regular features or the common features of Drupal that we're putting into Backdrop. So,
Yeah.
But we should do that from here on out.
Also, this is unrelated, but I found the release for 1.1. Neat is on your blog. Maybe we should move that because we didn't have the blog on Backdrop back then. Maybe we should move that over and just create an older post on Backdrop so that people who are looking for like what was in 1.1 could find that on our site.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. We also have the roadmap. The roadmap actually includes all previous releases as well as where we're going. And so in the roadmap, I linked to this news post as the announcement, but in previous ones we didn't have an announcement to link to.
Mm-hmm.
So
The last time we did.
And retroactively link that to a post on backdropcms.org.
Also, that's not going to scale. I was looking at that when I set up the 1.4 on the roadmap. I was like, this doesn't make any sense to have these in order, because then what you want is at the bottom. So then I was like, well, maybe I'll reverse the order. And then I was like, no, that doesn't. So I just left it. But at some point, we are going to need to figure out how to put the old stuff on another page so that the roadmap is really just the future.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah. Definitely. We need a roadmap of the past.
Yeah. What do you call that?
I think it's still a roadmap because the road's still there after you leave it. I think it's just... Well, at least going with that analogy, I don't think the map changes as you drive along it.
Okay. Well, I don't think we have anything else to talk about today. I think we should wait and talk about front-end theme and layouts in developer meeting today, too, and see if we can kind of nail some stuff down. I'll take some time between now and then to try and figure out what happened in that issue queue since the last time I was in there, and maybe make a list of things people are debating, and then we can talk about them in the meeting and see if that helps. Okay. All right, well, thank you guys all for jumping in, and we will have another design check-in in 2 weeks, which will be on February 11th. So we'll see the design crew on the 11th. I'm sure I'll see all of you guys in half an hour.
All right, bye guys. Thanks for joining.
Bye.